One of the students I tried to expel. The mother I tried to expel. I had just had it up to here, and you could probably guess which one it was. But anyway, Lifetime called me and said, you have a contract. She has a contract. You cannot throw her out of the studio. You have to let the kid back in. So then a bell went off, and I thought, if they can't quit, or I mean, if I can't throw them out,
right,
they can't quit.
Right.
So no matter what I say to them, they can't quit. So I just go for it.
Are you talking
but
about?
There's a real place.
No,
it's coming from a real place.
You're talking about Kathy.
No.
Who are you talking about?
Christy.
Did you just sit here and say that my daughter looks miserable, so maybe we should put Kalani in her place?
No, I didn't, dingbat. Listen.
Get your finger out of my face.
Let me make something clear. I don't give her credit for my success. I went on to be successful in spite of her.
The young girls of the Abby Lee Dance Company couldn't leave their contracts even if they wanted to. So Abby Lee treated her dancers however she wanted, purposefully antagonizing little girls for reality TV show ratings. This was the Abby Lee method for nearly a decade on the reality TV show Dance Moms. The producers and Abby created multi-dimensional layers of abuse throughout the ALDC, some that would never make it to air. Many grown men would stalk the young girls of the ALDC. The girls would be surrounded by suspicious convicted characters at all times, many who would end up in prison themselves. Abby Lee Miller would, yes, turn out many stars, but also destroy the lives of many of her young dancers, especially those who couldn't make it to the top of her arbitrary pyramid. But today, we are talking about the uprise of the Dance Moms and how the entirety of the ALDC would turn on Abby Lee as she was rotting away in her prison hell. This would create one of the largest and most public downfalls of a reality TV show in human history, making Abby Lee Miller into public enemy number one. As a wise construction working pop star once said, karma's a and she should have known better. But now, the victims of the ALDC are all grown up, and they are fighting back against the dance teacher who once held all the power over them. The biggest shock being Maddie Ziegler, who once was the star and muse of the ALDC, and now is Abby's fiercest critic. So join me and Shelby as we dive into the finale of Deep Dive Presents Dance Moms, and Abby Lee's atrocious abuse of power. And nothing could be more true for the first subject of today's video, ALDC alumni and future dance mom, Kelly Highland.
Before we dive into the long-awaited finale of Dance Moms, we want to take a moment to thank Trainwell, formerly Copilot, for sponsoring this episode of Deep Dive. Y'all, I have been on a major health journey for the last several months. I was finally ready to start incorporating workouts into my weekly routine, which honestly, for me, has always been really difficult to stay consistent with. I wasn't really sure where to start, and that's where Trainwell came in to help. They provided me with a personal trainer who met my specific needs.
So tell me a little bit about your current exercise history.
So the last couple months I haven't really been working out. I've just been trying to hit 10,000 steps a day. But now I'm like, okay, now that I got the food handled, I was like one thing at a time. I didn't want to do all too much at once, you know? So now I'm ready to incorporate the exercise.
The program I'm going to build out is going to be like beginner to intermediate level. It's just so great to have something that you can just show up, press play with, and have the guesswork taken out of. You don't have to worry about what you did last week, what you have to do the week before. And there's going to be tons of opportunity for you to see the progression and for us to celebrate the wins together, which is so motivating.
You can do your workout at any time of the day from home or at the gym. When I first started, I had absolutely no equipment, but that was no problem at all as my trainer still had me doing these tough workouts using my own body weight. She would regularly check in on me and would also send me motivational video messages, which helped me stay way more consistent. But for me, truly the best part is having a trainer who wants to see me succeed in my fitness goals and is there to guide me every step of the way. So be sure to head down to the description box and click our Trainwell link, go.trainwell.net/deep dive to get 14 free days with your own personal trainer. Now let's get back to all the twists and wild turns of Dance Moms.
Living on the dance floor.
It's no secret that the Dance Moms would often have screaming matches in front of their children. However, in seasons 3 and 4, this would get physical. These seasons would put Dance Moms on the map as a major reality television show, but it would also represent the beginning of the end for the ALDC as the world knew it. In November of 2013, Abby Lee would announce to her students that she would be forming an elite junior competition team to compete against her own existing junior elite competition team. Abby would put everyone at risk of being kicked off the team, all except Maddie, who was actually transferred to the new team so Abby's existing team wouldn't stand a chance. Abby creating an entirely new team was sort of her and production calling the dance moms out on their empty threats of leaving the Abby Lee Dance Company, always shouting at her team and their mothers that they couldn't leave and couldn't go to any other studios.
Your daughter is holding a national title and I will take it away in a minute!
Go ahead and take it away, Abby.
I will.
I'll leave your studio.
That's fine. Where are you gonna go?
To the viewers at home, including myself, this just sounded like Abby was cocky and confident in her choreography and teaching abilities, and that no one else would measure up. And this is what Abby believed and what the show portrayed her as. But if you watch the second part of the series, you know that the girls and their mothers couldn't leave even if they wanted to. The contracts for dance moms were airtight. But the 42-year-old mother of Brooke and Paige, Kelly Hyland, would find a way to break herself and her children out of not only the ALDC, but the Dance Moms machine entirely. Now remember, Kelly danced for Abby since she was only 8 years old.
Do you think allowing your two girls to stay with Abby Miller in the long run is good for them?
Yes, I do. Because I danced for Abby since I was 2. And I learned a lot of good things from her. It isn't all bad. You know, I learned good work ethics, how to carry myself.
Yeah.
It wasn't just...
Did Abby scream at you? Were you one of the ones that she had to scream at?
I was in her company the first year she started it.
Wow. Yeah.
I was 14 and she was
like 10.
Okay.
And her parents went where I said, wore what I told them to, did what they were supposed to when I was 14. Yes.
Wow. Abby showed a few affectionate moments towards Kelly's daughters on the show, but Brooke and Paige were most often her punching bags, or simply just pawns on the pyramid. Abby did create the first ever Dance Moms original song with Brooke, and even filmed a music video with her. And both of the girls had not only danced for the ALDC for the majority of their lives, but they'd been on Dance Moms at this point for 3 seasons. Both of the Hyland sisters had achieved worldwide success and fame. But when they were at the ALDC, they were treated like any member of Abby's dance team. After Abby announced this new junior elite competition team, she did pyramid just like any other week. Kelly's daughters, Brooke and Paige, were similarly placed on the top of the pyramid, Paige getting second to the top. Because of her placement, and probably the fact that Abby sent the majority of the elite competition team to compete at an entirely different dance competition called Nouveau Dance, Abby gave Paige not only a solo, but a duet along with a group number, all to learn in a matter of days. Meanwhile, while Paige is practicing, Chloe and Brooke are at the auditions for the replacement team, all while Kailani and Maddie are competing a duet at Nouveau Dance competition. Now, these auditions and new team members were allegedly all just to create drama for the show. However, some girls would appear in multiple episodes and have long-standing storylines with the mothers and Abby. Now, a few days later, when it came time for Paige to perform her solo, Abby was predictably unsatisfied. That's when she would pull a secret weapon that would change the face of the Abby Lee Dance Company forever. Abby was going to add Maddie and Kailani's duet that they just competed at the Nouveau Dance competition into the current competition that all the other ALDC members were competing at, including Chloe and Paige's duet. When Christy asked Maddie and Melissa if they were competing the duet from Nouveau, they both said no. Maddie maintained that she was talking about Nouveau Dance competition, not this competition. However, they did go on to compete it. But Melissa kind of exposed herself, accusing Christy and Kelly of keeping secrets all the time. This turns into an explosive confrontation with Maddie, Chloe, and Paige in the room. Kelly tells Paige to, quote, know who your friends are, and Maddie takes this super personally. While the girls are getting ready for the group performance, Abby Lee brought Kailani and her mother from the new team into the dressing room. Now, something that's often overshadowed is Brooke Hyland in this entire situation. The most intense Dance Mom smackdown is over Brooke while she's in the room, her own mother yelling at Abby to replace her. And it genuinely breaks my heart to see the girls in the background like this. Like, no child should have to witness this at all. Now, Abby and Kelly would unknowingly be making television history, as Dance Moms would be humiliated, hair would be pulled, and fingers would be bitten.
Daughter looks miserable. miserable, so maybe we should put Kalani in her place.
No, I never said that.
Yes, you most certainly did.
No, I didn't, dingbat. Listen, I said, Brooke, is your mother
Get your finger
Do you
out
want
of my face. Girls out the room. Yeah, you would eat
500-pound hog pretending to eat me. She yanked my hair. She scratched, I don't know. It happened so fast.
You need to leave now. We'll get the rest of your stuff. You need to leave now.
She's white. She has a black and gold dress on, and she has short, like a haircut that's like cool and trendy, like it's long in the front and short in the back.
Police shut us down. Shut us down.
Now, according to TMZ, this would result in the arrest of Kelly Highland in New York City. Abby was pressing assault charges against Kelly, saying she was the one who attacked her. Kelly had to appear in court shortly after to contest her charges. And parked outside the courtroom was none other than Paige Brooke and now Kelly's sleep paralysis demon, Abby Lee Miller. She would shout horrific comments at Kelly, heckling her outside of the courtroom, with Lifetime producers and TMZ there to capture all of the action.
I just can't believe all this. I can't believe she pulls up. We're standing out here in the freezing cold looking like an idiot, and she pulls up in a BMW. She pulls up in the fancy car, waltzes in with the attorney, and gets back. No way.
That's her guilty. That's her.
What do you hope to come from this? What do you hope to come from this whole situation? You know, going to court and stuff like that.
Well, you know, I have to stand by what I believe in, and I believe that justice
is going to be served.
Well, yes. And you know what I said? My friends said at home, I said, do you think I'm doing the right thing? And they said, hey, Abby, if you don't press charges against her, the next thing, no, it's going to be those 2 kids killed in the car with her. That's what it's going to be.
What do you think about how she had police entourage outside coming out of court?
A police entourage?
She had the people inside court walked her out of court. The cops escorted her out of into the
I don't know. I think men think she's sexy. I think I think sometimes men think, well, she's a dumb girl. They'll help her out. She plays the dumb blonde thing. I don't do that. I'm very aggressive. I know what I want. I go after it. You know, I don't need a man to do my dirty work for me. She does. But notice it wasn't her husband.
True. The episode of the incident still hadn't aired, but TMZ and other news outlets were reporting on the massive physical altercation that took place behind the scenes on Dance Moms. Thus, with all this publicity, Abby would go on The View to further destroy Kelly's reputation.
What happened with you and Kelly? I thought that was just on TV. What is real?
Oh, it's all real. People ask me, why is your show so popular? Why does it work? This, that, and the other thing. Because it's real.
Okay, well,
it's all real. And these children have been my students at the dance studio that my mother formerly owned, Mary and Lorraine Dance Studio, for years and years and years before there ever was a television show. So if they were unhappy with the training or the tutelage or the service, why didn't they leave before show?
Okay, well, then what happened at this competition in the Bronx?
So we're in the Bronx. It was not the best of circumstances. It was a beautiful theater, beautiful stage, but we were like 3 stories under the stage, like at Radio City. The girls, her 2 children, had solos that week. Okay. And we all know from the history of the show that whenever her kids have a solo, she bails. Okay. The recital, she bails. This time, she bails. She walks out. They never end up doing it. Now, you know, Maddie did 17 solos in a row without a hitch. Right. It's her job. She does what she's supposed to do. Well, it just got crazy, and it was just boiling and boiling and boiling. I went into the dressing room to take a new mom that has now been given a permanent position on the show in and introduce her daughter. And they had people coming and going with these auditions all the time. So I take them into the room and introduce them. And right in front of this woman, she starts with me.
Kelly.
Well, yes, let her do my daughter's part. Well, put her in the group and take my kid out. So the child's sitting there, and I looked at her, I said, do you want to dance or don't you want to dance? Like, open your mouth and say something. Right. Kelly kept coming towards me, and I was sitting in the corner in a chair, and I stood up, because, like, shit. And I went towards her, and I stop putting words in my mouth. You just said to my daughter, I said, no, I didn't. It was 2 seconds ago. I know exactly what I said. Stop. So we got closer and closer, and then she said, don't put your finger in my face. And she started putting her finger in my face, jokingly and trying to make light of the situation because all the children were there. I was like, right. And see, it was funny. I thought it was funny, trying to break the ice. And with that, she went crazy. Well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not a medical professional. Yes, she yanked my hair, and I have my do in, I have a little bump it in. So when you pull your own hair, it's like not gonna come out. But when you pull that and it's pinned into your head, it hurts.
So now the weed came out? Oh my God.
This entire situation would result in Kelly leaving the ALDC for good, never to return again. 2 of the OG Dance Moms girls had left the group. Most of the moms would only talk to Kelly in secret, as it seemed to be an unspoken rule that the ALDC couldn't converse with the ops. Some of these secret Kelly meetings would appear on the show, but Kelly alleges she was never paid for these appearances, and her family was stuck in contractual limbo with production. Now, during this time, the Dance Moms were all unhappy with their income from the show, especially given its prolific success. Thus, they actually staged a walkout. Now, normally each scene on Dance Moms is facilitated, organized, and created by production. Whether it's Kathy's meat commercial for Chloe or a dance-off on Hollywood Boulevard, producers were working tirelessly behind the scenes to create as dramatic of a storyline as possible. That's why for the walkout, the Dance Moms decided amongst themselves that they wouldn't say a word the producers wanted them to say, and they were going to be as boring as possible, even opting to go sit in their cars and remain completely silent. Now, the show framed this as a walkout on Kelly, Paige, and Brooke's behalf, as it happened immediately after her departure from the ALDC. But by now, most of the Dance Moms have alluded to it being over unfair wages. Abby would punish the young dancers of the ALDC, all because of their mothers fighting for fair wages, hurling insults at Maddie in one of the most heartbreaking scenes of the entire show.
How are you? There's people standing in the parking lot. That was awful, Maddie. I don't deserve that. I didn't deserve any of it. There's always another kid. There's always somebody else. We love you. We were ready to work with you. And you sat out there. I'm sorry. Why didn't you get out of the car and go? No, I'm going in there.
Eventually, the Dance Moms and producers came to an agreement and they were given a bit more pay, but nothing compared to how much Maddie was making. Anyway, 5 months after all of this took place, the finger-biting incident would air in March of 2014 on episode 7 of season 4. Now, 2 days after the episode aired, Kelly would file a lawsuit against the production company that created Dance Moms, Collins Avenue Entertainment, and even Abby Lee Miller. On the financial and contractual end of the lawsuit, Kelly was suing Collins Avenue Entertainment for $5 million, including unpaid salary from season 3 and 4, emotional distress, negligence, as well as an immediate release from her contract. She also claims the production crew damaged her flooring, and she wanted it replaced. Unsurprisingly, aside from the financial aspects, this lawsuit would contain some major bombshells. The first complaint to make headlines was the defamation portion of the case. Kelly was suing Abby Lee for everything she'd said at the courthouse, and even the finger-biting incident. The second complaint to make headlines were the emotional distress claims Kelly brought against Abby on behalf of her and her daughters, listing out various incidences of verbal attacks from Abby towards the young cast of Dance Moms. Now, these claims from Kelly's case would make major headlines, but after reading through the entire case, we found way more explosive bombshells that the news actually didn't really care to report on. The first being the allegations of coercion on the crime scene. Kelly alleged that after Abby called the police on her, the Collins Avenue production crew told her the police were coming and to flee the scene of the incident, even going as far as to encourage her to fly out of the state to escape the police. Kelly believes this was a deliberate attempt on production's part to get a warrant out for her arrest, only to create salacious drama for the show. Now, the second bombshell we found is a little more serious. In the complaint, Kelly complained about the skimpy outfits that production made her daughters wear, and the risque dances they were made to do at such a young age. Kelly claiming the young girls were humiliated by the costumes, and multiple girls didn't even want to wear them. Now, this was true for many of the dances. As early as season 1, episode 2 of Dance Moms, Collins Avenue Entertainment had been trying to mimic the virality of precision dance, pushing the envelope further and further with each dance. Now, this is the part of the video where we get to one of the darkest parts of Dance Moms, Broadway Blondes. Now, like Electricity and The Last Dance, Broadway Blondes was not only criticized for its choreography and costuming. This dance was choreographed by convicted child of Fender and Australian choreographer Grant Davies. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth into this, but Grant essentially created a cult out of his dance studio with his sister, promising girls as young as 12 professional opportunities and success if they would pose in his explicit photo shoots. Some of the mothers even self-admittedly sending in illicit photos of their daughters to get them ahead. His sister seemingly turned a blind eye to this for years, allowing girl after girl to enter the Davies studio to become a victim of Grant. Now, Grant first had his computer seized in 2007 following accusations from very young girls that he had sent utterly disgusting and deplorable messages to them. This investigation was later dropped, allowing Grant to immediately resume work with his studio full of children. And only 6 years later, in 2013, weeks before his subsequent arrest, Grant Davies would appear on Dance Moms alongside his sister to choreograph Paige and Chloe's most controversial routine, Broadway Blondes. But this wasn't the most controversial dance on Dance Moms. Lifetime would not re-air and would opt to delete episode 9 of season 2, titled Topless Girls. And unfortunately, it's just as bad as you'd think. Now, this dance, along with all the other controversial dances, would light online message boards on fire, exposing a much more unsettling demographic of the Dance Moms fan base. Older men. One of these men being Phoenix Sundown, who not only tattooed Jojo Siwa and zombie Abby Lee on his neck, but would also send unspeakable material to Maddie and Jojo that would need to be taken in as evidence. Kelly's daughter, Brooke, was also set up on a date by production with Kevin Consuela. Kevin would grow up to take over his father's dance studio, be completely inappropriate with the dance team he was teaching, and go on to serve 5 years behind bars. Now, the Highlands had had enough of the uncomfortable situations they were put through by production and Abby Lee, but their lawsuit for emotional abuse and defamation was about to be dismissed by Judge Ruth Ann Kwan. This is when Paige Highland would file a lawsuit against Abby Lee Miller for physical abuse. This complaint was also explosive as it accused Abby Lee of pinching Paige until she bled and even throwing a chair at her, which can actually be seen on the show. In November of 2014, the judge predictably dismissed Kelly's emotional distress, defamation, and abuse claims. But the courts allowed Kelly to continue onward with her claims of negligence and breach of contract. Collins Avenue would eventually settle with Kelly, Paige, and Brooke Highland, only by paying for Kelly's new floors throughout her entire house. Socially, Kelly was eventually cut off and shunned from the rest of the Dance Moms, all except for Christy, who stood up for Kelly any chance she could. She was a true friend who defended Kelly in the rooms she wasn't in, even when it wasn't in her best interest. Kelly and Christy had created one of the most iconic friendships reality television had ever seen.
When we're letting go, so we can get this record to break. 'Cause I can't wait no more to get on the floor. Don't stop now, it's a chance. Shut up and dance, 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 dance. Shut up and dance. Living on the dance floor.
The Highlands left Dance Moms in 2014, just before it would reach an entirely new level. After the whole finger-biting fiasco, the girls of Dance Moms would all explode in their own right. Specifically, Maddie Ziegler, who would see much success outside of the show around the year 2014. This is the year Maddie Ziegler hit the pop music scene as the face of Sia. And it's also the same year that we saw the explosion of Abby's Ultimate Dance Competition, which discovered prolific dancers Asia Monet Ray, Kalani Liquor, and most importantly, Jojo Siwa. Jojo's mother, Jessalyn Siwa, envisioned her daughter as a star from a very young age. She began bleaching Jojo's hair at just 2 years old and started bringing her to various auditions in an attempt to get Jojo into Hollywood. This would create a bizarre and unconventional relationship between Jojo and her mother, where her mother would make it her quote, life's mission to make Jojo a star. And a star she would become. After appearing on Abby's Ultimate dance competition the year prior, Jojo would briefly appear in season 4 of Dance Moms as a guest star, but it would be in season 5, episode 3, titled Jojo with the Bobo, where Jojo would begin her empire. See, because Jojo wasn't from the original dance studio, she represented a complete shift for Dance Moms. While parents like Christy, Kelly, and Dr. Holly wanted their children to be professional dancers, Jessalyn, who lived in Los Angeles, California, wanted her daughter to be a child star. And Jojo was already well on her way, garnering millions upon millions of views on YouTube with her characters and over-engaging vlogs. Jojo would begin collaborating with other YouTubers targeted at children at the time, including Shane Dawson and Colleen Ballinger. As she premiered on Dance Moms, she only began racking up more and more subscribers, topping off at nearly 12 million. In the meantime, Maddie was racking up tens of millions of views on Chandelier and Elastic Heart, and Max Z, Kendall K, and Nia were all trying their luck at a music career. Social media from the years 2015 to 2017 was completely dominated by the cast of Dance Moms, each of them creating lucrative careers as influencers. However, both Jojo and Maddie were on a rocket ride of success that was completely incomparable to that of their fellow teammates. This would begin to change the entire dynamic of the show. Now, instead of just skill, talent, acting, and personalities, they were being compared by their follower counts. Now, there are many reasons children shouldn't be on social media. I mean, family vloggers, that's an entirely different video on its own. But because the girls were so young, they often had major mistakes caught in the public eye. Like when the ALDC girls made fun of Jojo's voice and personality at a meet and greet.
Wake up to all these emails of, did you see the video? Did you see the video? I am completely shocked and mortified that these girls would do this to Jojo and that their moms or Abby didn't put a stop to it.
Maddie Ziegler was somewhat media trained, so she swooped in defending Jojo from the girls' jokes. But the damage had been done, and the backlash of the entire ordeal aired on Dance Moms. While all of this was happening, the girls were touring, conducting masterclasses, and selling merch. One of these trips being the Australian smuggling trip, which we already talked about in part 1 of this series, but here's a little refresher. This highly illegal activity, along with a dash of bankruptcy fraud, would put Abby Lee behind bars in one of the most dramatic arrests in reality TV history. This would send Dance Moms into a tailspin, and during Abby's legal proceedings, many girls would attempt to claw their way out of the ironclad Dance Moms contract. By season 4 of Dance Moms, Christy and Chloe were ready to leave the show for good, attempting to break their contract 2 seasons early. With Kelly, Paige, and Brooke gone, Christy said 100% of the verbal attacks went to Chloe, and the abuses she had already experienced up to this point were only getting worse. Plus, she was downright exhausted from years of filming nonstop, sometimes upwards of 70 hours a week. To top all of that off, behind the scenes during season 4, Chloe was dealing with a medical condition that required surgery.
And at one point, and I'm not exaggerating for effect, she had 17 vials of blood drawn at one time for testing, and then we had to leave there and go directly to the studio for her to dance because we were filming. Then there was talk that she possibly had a brain tumor that was affecting her eye. Just a lot of really major things. And then it ended up that she just had something called silent sinus syndrome. She ended up needing 3 surgeries. This was not something that was being discussed on the show because I didn't want to give, at that point, this was season 4 and things were very ugly with the dance teacher. I didn't want to give her any ammunition really against Chloe. So all of this was going on and people were insanely cruel on the internet about her eye. It made me sick to my stomach to see my daughter and to know that I put her out there because she's a kid. Like, she didn't sign up to be on a reality show.
Abby knew Christy and Chloe couldn't just up and leave because of the Dance Mom contracts, and admitted to basically terrorizing them just because she could.
One of the students I tried to expel. The mother I tried to expel, I had just had it up to here, and you could probably guess which one it was. Lifetime called me and said, you have a contract. She has a contract. You cannot throw her out of the studio. You have to let the kid back in. So then a bell went off, and I thought, if they can't quit, if I can't throw them out,
right,
they can't quit.
Right.
So no matter what I say to them, they can't quit. So I just go for it.
Are you talking
but
about?
There's a real place.
No,
it's coming from a real place.
You're talking about Kathy.
No.
Who are you talking about?
Christy.
Oh, okay.
This made continuing on the show absolutely unbearable for Chloe. But the straw that broke the camel's back was when Abby Lee apparently made an off-limits comment making fun of Chloe's eye. Now, we don't know exactly what Abby said, and it never aired. But what did make it to television was Christy's reaction.
You know what, Abby? Go ahead and say awful things about
They know Chloe here at Star Power.
How dare you say things about my kid? What, are you gonna run to the judges and argue like you did last time?
No.
Oh, I bet you are. You know why? Because you're classless. You're nowhere near Chloe's league. You're down here. She has more class in her little finger at 13 than you have in that big fat body at 45.
Chloe is finished. Your kid's washed up.
How dare you? Do you know anything about that kid? No! Let's go, Chloe. It's really sad that Chloe was part of the winning group dance, and she had the highest scoring ALDC solo, and this is how her national ends.
I still want to dance. I still want to do this, but I don't want to do it with her anymore.
Now, in part 2 of this series, we talked a bit about how since the show fell under the category unscripted television, that there were less child labor laws in place, making it much easier to exploit the children of dance moms. Now, despite this, production would apparently even break the very few protections that were in place.
I was just so fed up with the show and the way that the girls are treated by the producers and Maddie. And like, they work very hard. They deserve respect. I mean, they're hardworking children. They go to full regular school, full time. They travel on Fridays. They're responsible for all the same schoolwork and homework that you guys are responsible for. They film every day from 4 to 10. On Saturdays, on our competition days, we film from our call times are usually 7 or 8 in the morning until like 8, 9 at night. Like, they work those long days. So when I walked out and I was saying, get away from me, I wasn't talking to the fans, which everyone in America was like, she's I'm like, I was talking to the cameraman. I wanted them away from me. I wanted off the show.
Christy was able to get out of her contract by the season 4 finale. It is rumored that she did so by threatening production with proof that the show was violating child labor laws.
I thought it wasn't enough, like in every single way. And it wasn't until about a year ago that I realized the way I felt about myself were her words still lingering with me, like 10 years later. When I realized that's not who I am, that's not my truth. She doesn't define me anymore. She doesn't get that power over me. And I've started to heal.
Season 5 of Dance Moms would end up being an entire mess. Abby would open up a new ALDC studio in Los Angeles, but due to her ongoing bankruptcy fraud troubles, she just didn't seem to care about the team anymore. Paige's lawsuit against Abby was heating up during the filming of Season 5, so the whole team was trying to navigate the immense amount of negative press. Then Maddie started missing competitions for Hollywood jobs like dancing on SNL or guest starring in Disney Channel's Austin and Ally. With all of this chaos going on, it was no surprise that Season 5 would end with the ALDC losing at Nationals. Fast forward to Season 6, it was clear that the show was a sinking ship. It was only a matter of time before it entirely went down in flames, and Maddie's star was shining way too bright to go down with it. Rumors started swirling that Melissa, Maddie, and Kenzie were leaving both the ALDC and Dance Moms.
First of all, I appreciate you and everything you've done for my kids, but we're gonna, after this season, we're just gonna not be on the elite team anymore.
So the rumors are true.
I don't know who got that rumor out because it wasn't me.
Right.
With everything going on with Maddie and, you know, we're just busy and lots of things are in the works.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's hard. You know how I love the ALDC.
Why didn't you tell me before this? You could have called me on it.
I didn't want to even think about it, to be honest with you. Just always want you to be proud of them.
I'm proud of them.
I know you are.
Maddie has since said that the real reason they left the show was for their mental health. She was dealing with more stress and pressure than any child should at that age. She was just over the sensationalized drama. In an interview with Cosmopolitan, she even revealed that Melissa had been trying to get the girls out of their contract since season 3.
We did 6 seasons of the show, and so I got out when I was 11 or 12.
Wow.
And like,
it's a huge chunk of your life and your childhood. It's your whole foundation.
Yeah, totally. And she really like did everything to try and break our contract and pull us out, and eventually did.
Wow.
With the help of Sia, she helped us a lot too. But it was hard. But
because they basically had you bound in contract.
Totally, because we signed on for so long.
Right. It was like as many seasons as they want, basically, I'm sure.
Totally. And we would do like, I don't know, almost 30 episodes a season. So it was like a lot of it consumed our lives.
Kenzie and Maddie weren't the only cast members to leave in season 6. The show would lose another major star, Jojo. By this point, Jojo with the Bobo was already making a fortune off selling her line of bows. Nickelodeon saw this and signed her to a groundbreaking 360 contract. She was going to get merchandising lines, music, movies, television, and brand deals. So much more than Dance Moms could ever offer her. So choosing Nickelodeon was kind of a no-brainer. However, there was that pesky Dance Moms contract. Luckily for Jojo, she's from California, which has much stricter laws in terms of child entertainers. One of those laws being that her Dance Moms contract had to be registered in the state of California, but production in the network failed to do so, making the contract void. Now, at the time, the show made it seem like Jojo left over not wanting to do a ballet routine, and that she just walked out and never returned.
Give her a ballet dance? Are you kidding me? If we look bad on stage, I care. JoJo's gonna be the next big thing. Her music video's out, her song is out. There's so much other stuff coming out. Like, JoJo is branding herself. Honestly, JoJo has a lot to lose. Like, I don't need Abby bringing us down.
I think it's going to be good for you.
You're not doing it. No. Honey.
JoJo.
These are just the ALDC girls who managed to escape their contracts and leave the show early. However, the truth is, most of the moms did not want their kids on the show from the very first season, and they tried very hard to break their contracts along the way, but were threatened with lawsuits and losing their homes, which would inevitably scare them into silence, effectively allowing a network and a production company to make millions, all while exploiting their children and stealing their childhoods.
Halfway through season 7, Abby Lee's legal troubles were finally catching up to her, and her sentencing was on February 24th, 2017. But in a shocking move, Abby Lee decided to spend the remainder of her time as a free woman hosting last-minute dance events in Europe, quite frankly abandoning the ALDC, returning to the United States on the 23rd for her sentencing. Now, we have an entire video already on Abby Lee and all her legal troubles, so if you want to deep dive into that, I will link the episode below. But this is where one of the strangest and most memorable dances of the entire show would take place. As for Abby's final hurrah with her original team, she would invite her extremely young vegan rapper boyfriend to come to the ALDC and share his art of veganism with the dancers, choreographing them to his rap about animal cruelty in the single strangest dance to ever grace the Dance Moms stage.
Now do the veggie dance. Now do the veggie dance. Now do the veggie dance. Yum yum, get up. Yum yum, get up. Yum yum, get up.
With Abby gone for weeks and weeks, taking her hiatus from the show, the OG girls of the ALDC weren't quite ready to throw in the towel. And because production were often the ones coming up with the dances and concepts in the first place, the OG girls would actually be able to carry on without Abby. The second that there was even an inkling that Abby would have to leave the show, production immediately phoned Christy, alerting her that the coast was finally clear for her and Chloe to make a dramatic multi-part return and form a new dance group aptly titled the Irreplaceables. Now, this dance troupe would consist of several OG ALDC members like Chloe and Mia, but would also add Kendall, Kalani, and Cameron to the mix as well. Bryn was almost added, but Ashley, her mother, actually opted to wait it out for Abby and throw production under the bus in the process, as Ashley told TMZ that the new Irreplaceables choreography is too grown up for her daughter.
I have decided to leave Dance Moms because there were some events that took place over the last week which included portraying young girls in a manner that I would never want my daughter portrayed in, and realizing that without Abby over the show, that was kind of the direction that the show was heading, and I just do not see my 13-year-old daughter being a part of it. I knew that the Elise dance was going to be slightly provocative and overly sexy, but when I saw it on stage, I was absolutely appalled at anybody feeling that this was an appropriate way to portray 14 and 15-year-old girls. And if that's where the show is heading, that's definitely not what Bryn and I stand for. The last straw for me absolutely was when I expressed my concern with my 13-year-old daughter being on a television show that was portraying young women that way. And I was blown off. I was brushed off and said, well, this would be okay in Europe.
And to be honest, many people thought The Last Dance, among many of the other ALDC and Irreplaceables choreography, was way too grown up and highly offensive, most notably for Nia Sue. See, Nia and Holly were some of the most loyal and hardworking members of the ALDC, but according to Dr. Holly, anytime Nia got a solo, it was at her own expense. Nia was often made to portray stereotypes of various cultures, her first solo being, quote, Laquifa, where Shangela from RuPaul's Drag Race teaches her how to, quote, death drop. Then there's the entire Rosa Parks group dance from season 3, where Abby makes all the girls audition to be Rosa Parks. Jill famously going further than any of the other mothers and trying everything she could to get Kendall the part of Rosa Parks. This even drew a side eye from many of the moms in the actual episode, as Abby's blatant racism truly knew no bounds.
The group routine is about Rosa Parks.
Since Nia's at the top of the pyramid and the dance is called Rosa Parks, and obviously this is a part destined for Nia.
Don't assume anything. I have no idea who will play Rosa Parks.
Really?
She has to give it her all before I'm even gonna let her know that the part is hers. Holly, what's going on with the short skirt? And your hair's in your face? I mean, come on.
I'm surprised you don't like my style.
I don't.
How could you make Chloe look like Rosa Parks without being too controversial? Oh boy. Whoa.
What's Jill doing here?
She invited me for moral support. When Holly told me that Abby was going to take her shopping, I really wanted to be there. I know that the role of Rosa Parks hasn't been assigned to any of the dancers yet. If she's not going to cast Nia, it might as well be Kendall. Have you seen the number long enough to figure out who's going to play?
I just started the number. I didn't even get the props in the studio.
Well, that's why I asked what the status is. What are you thinking about it?
I can't believe Jill's lobbying for her daughter to take this part away from Nia. Jill, I brought you along to kind of be a buffer, not to absorb opportunities for your child to get ahead.
I don't know. I mean, you know, come on. Maddie's the strongest dancer.
I know you want Kendall to work on her face, and if that's what you want, then I need to get that for Kendall.
You know what, Jill? If she gets it, she's gonna get it on her own. I'm not sure Kendall will ever be ready to play Rosa Parks, but she must use her face in her solo. I don't even know who's playing Rosa Parks. Every time I look at you, Nia, because you're the obvious choice, your feet are like hooves.
You actually asked her for that part.
No, what? No, I said it would be a good part for Kendall because she needs to work on her acting and her face.
I really think you're like delusional now,
I didn't
Jill.
say
That you
give
think
it
that
to
that's
Kendall.
a good part for her.
Here's an opportunity for my child to have a lead role, and it's driving them crazy. What did I do crazy?
You asked Abby if Kendall could be Rosa Parks.
We think you should go down and say, you know what? I think I was mistaken. I don't think that this would be a good part for Kendall. I think Nia fits this role.
Abby, do you have a minute? I just need to let you know that Christy and Kelly are going berserk, that they think Kendall is playing Rosa Parks.
Nia needs to think she has competition. I can't just hand it to her on a platter.
It would make perfect sense for Nia to play Rosa Parks. They badgered me and
And you
until
came down.
I did because I had
So you just took your kid and put her on the back burner for somebody else. Your mother just took you out of the running for Rosa Parks.
Multiple girls, including Cameron from the Irreplaceables, would come out and bravely share the truth of how they were treated on Dance Moms and at the ALDC. Abby Lee would even be forced to apologize years later, as unforgivable clips of her on the show would begin going viral on TikTok. Nonetheless, as Abby made her speedy exit to Europe before her sentencing, production would call choreographer Lorianne Gibson to lead the Irreplaceables to victory. For multiple weeks, while Abby was in Europe and going about her various legal proceedings, Lorianne would choreograph the girls of the ALDC. However, Abby would return from Europe and shockingly also return to the ALDC, only to be met with the Dance Moms letting her know they would not be returning to Abby's dance team. Instead, they were hiring Dancing with the Stars alumni Cheryl Burke to choreograph their kids as the Irreplaceables. This was a major reality check for Abby. Her final original girls were leaving the ALDC for good. This would result result in multiple episodes of the new Abby Lee Dance Company, with Bryn, Macy, Eliana, Liliana, and even more, competing against the Irreplaceables. Chloe even having to perform in front of Abby a few final times. And TMZ would fuel the fire between Abby, production, and the mothers during this back and forth. And the two teams would compete head-to-head until the end of season 7, when in May of 2017, Abby was officially sentenced to a year and a day in federal prison. Dance Moms would go on hiatus for almost a year as Abby served her sentence. And if you want all the details of Abby's life behind bars and battle with production, like I said, check out part 1 of the series. Anyway, after Abby emerged from prison, the next season of Dance Moms would begin development. Abby and Gianna would cast the season as an entirely new team. This would result in the fakest season of Dance Moms yet. The only familiar faces to return to season 8 were Jojo Siwa as a guest star and Eliana and Liliana, whose mothers had the choking fight. Needless to say, this was pretty much the end of the Dance Moms show as we knew it. But what about the Irreplaceables? What happened to the OG girls from the ALDC after the show ended? Are they even still friends? Now, as of today, Dance Moms has taken the entire world by storm. There have been so many renewed interests in the show. I don't actually think it ever went away or had a comeback, simply because it never left. Now, there are a ton of questions that arise when dealing with Dance Moms, like, do the girls still talk to Abby? Did anyone become famous after the show? Who still dances and who quit? Well, let's go ALDC member by ALDC member and dive into what they're up to today. After leaving the show, Maddie Ziegler quickly began work on her disastrous movie with Sia. Now, we have an entire dedicated deep dive about Maddie Ziegler's career outside of the show, so we won't get too into it here. As for Kenzie, she would sue the label Abby hooked her up with and truly soar in the music space, creating one of the biggest influencing platforms from the show. Both Maddie and Kenzie have completely distanced themselves from Abby and even spoken out about their personal mistreatment on the show.
I'm so grateful for the show because it got me to where I am today, and it's helped me, with so many opportunities.
Maddie says of Abby, she trained me, she helped me, but also I knew I would be okay without her. And I was sick of being in a toxic environment. I was like, this is not for me. I can't do this.
Abby Lee has been very vocal about what she has perceived as Maddie and Kenzie's ungratefulness.
They distance themselves. All of them. All the kids, all the moms act as if I had nothing to do with the show, nor my studio.
Even continuing to make content on her YouTube channel critiquing the girls current day. And when it comes to her past favorite, Maddie, Abby never holds back.
Maddie. Oh goodness, the best thing about her, her devotion to dance. Before a TV show and during a TV show, yes. And her willingness to be creative. When I told her she was going to be blind and portray Helen Keller, she did it. When I told her she was going to be Lizzie Borden and she was going to whack her mother 40 times and whack her dad 40 times with an axe, she did it. And she did it well. Negative? Doesn't give me, or really anybody else, credit for her training, for her acting classes that she came and took from my friend in my studio and never had to pay for the space or the time or anything. All those little things, she could be more appreciative. Let's just leave that as her negative, Who knows, maybe I didn't buy enough thank you notes for her. All right.
Now, keep in mind, in 2024, Dance Moms would come back in a huge way. Collins Avenue Entertainment would bring a majority of the ALDC back for the reunion, but not all the girls who were invited would return. Maddie and Kenzie did not want to return. Their schedule actually allowed it, but they didn't want to bring up the past. Nia Sue, Holly's daughter, also didn't show up to the reunion, saying she doesn't want to live in the past.
Personally, I wasn't going to say anything because I just don't want to start drama. Not that this would even start drama, it really shouldn't. And also I didn't want to make it because I don't want it to seem like I'm searching for attention, because I really don't care. Yeah, it's pretty plain and simple. I just didn't want to do it. Some people think it was because I had sorority stuff. Nope, I didn't. Some people think it's because I'm in school. I am in school, but it wouldn't have been an issue. I just don't want to do it. And that's a good enough answer, and that's a good enough reason. And something I wanted to say is I think almost in any interview I've done when someone has asked me about the show, I always say that I'm grateful for it. It's where I came from. It's how I got my start. It's the reason why I have such an amazing life now. Truly, like I love my life. I have a fabulous life and I'm truly enjoying it. But yeah, you can go back to other like videos or interviews I've done. I always say that I'm grateful for the show. It's not that I'm not grateful for it. I've always been grateful for it. It's not that. I love the girls and I'm really happy for them, and I'm really happy that they get to share how they felt or their experiences. But that's just something that I decided I didn't want to do, and that's okay. Also, I never said that I wouldn't do a reunion show in the future or talk about my experiences in the future, but right now at this moment it just was not the right time for me to do that.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. There's some cast members that chose not to show up today.
I think everyone knows who's not here. Maybe they just don't think they needed this. Some people might still be processing, and it's hard to talk about some of the stuff that we went through. But here's the thing, they're not here, so why are they still trying to make headlines with it? Don't talk about Dance Moms if you don't want to be a part of it. Right.
There hasn't been a lot of contact or a lot of hanging out in the past few years. All of a sudden, last night, we have, off camera, a big reunion at Maddie's house.
It was a surprise party for my birthday, so.
Yeah. You don't think there's any other ulterior motives of having you guys all over there the night before a reunion where they're not going to be here?
I mean, I feel like it's weird. We've never been invited like that. I'm gonna call Christy.
I wasn't invited by Melissa because Melissa set this up to make sure that none of us said anything bad about them at this reunion.
Do you hear Christy?
Melissa has been orchestrating and playing everyone as long as I've known her. She saw an opportunity to absolutely throw a fire blanket on any bomb that was going to go off today, and she took it. And anybody who thinks different you're delusional. For somebody who doesn't like drama or doesn't want conflict, she sure orchestrates a lot of it.
Now, minus those three girls, the remaining stars of the ALDC would gather together for a groundbreaking reunion in 2024. Tears would be shed, Jojo would defend Abby, and all the other girls wouldn't hold back. One by one, each member of the ALDC recounted their trauma at the hands of Abby Lee. Paige and Brooke Highland sharing the abuses they faced from her during the show. Chloe bravely came back and defended herself against Abby's teaching methods, reiterating that she wasn't successful because of Abby, but instead in spite of her.
This is gonna be a little controversial to say, I think, but to me, Abby was always right. I did interrupt two adults talking. If I was a mess and a beat off, she wasn't just yelling at me because she wanted to yell at me. I actually was a mess and was a beat off. One thing that I've learned, like really working insane in Hollywood, is that that's normal. And it's like, it's scary that that's normal, but that taught me how to survive in the industry. I do credit a lot of my thick skin and my ability to handle good news, bad news to Abby.
Let me make something clear. I don't give her credit for my success. I went on to be successful in spite of her, not because of her.
However, the same couldn't be said for Kehlani or Jojo Siwa. Kehlani explained her side of the story with a very nuanced approach, explaining that the other girls have their own experiences with Abby, but she wanted to keep her relationship with the dance teacher she felt like gave her her entire career. Jojo Siwa in 2024, well, she's been completely taking over the world, debuting as a pop star in her single Karma and feverishly defending Abby Lee to the public. She had multiple controversial moments at the reunion where she told her traumatized friends that she felt like Abby didn't actually do anything wrong and that she was always right. But Jojo has had a career explosion over the last decade, unlike her counterparts, and she's been continuously surrounded by adults and various YouTubers, quickly amassing a children's entertainment empire rival to pretty much no one, and Jojo accredits that to Abby Lee. While this has seemingly caused tension amongst the ALDC alumni, the girls have banded together and remained close. Even if they aren't all as close as they were when they were younger, there is a mutual respect they have for each other in person. No matter how much the girls and their mothers fight, they could always come together and be in the same room with one another. Even Melissa and Christy, who, while they may trash each other's style on their respective podcasts, still maintain decorum with one another in person. And y'all, there was an entire podcast smackdown between the dance moms. See, all the moms were in talks to create a podcast together during quarantine. Initially, it consisted of Melissa, Jill, Christy, Holly, and Kelly, the OG moms with Jill. However, the idea of sitting down with the moms and bringing herself back to that observation room at the ALDC in 2011 haunted Christy. She couldn't bring herself back to the depths the dance moms pulled her into. Thus, she opted to remove herself from the podcast entirely in favor of creating Back to the Bar with her iconic best friend, Kelly Highland. Now, Kelly was double dipping on both sides and still is, as she's the only dance mom who appears on both podcasts. When the dance moms were promoting their podcasts because the mom said so, they were asked on ET why Christy wasn't included, and they remained very respectful.
I love that you're all still super close, but I can't help but notice there's a certain mom missing here. Are you guys still close with Christy?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Christy,
Kelly, I know you two are very close. Are you still in contact?
Yes, we are actually. But yeah, I talk to her all the time.
So where does that leave Dance Moms? Well, it's currently re-premiering in the UK as if it's an all-new show, and multiple podcasts are going strong with thousands of listeners a week. Jojo Siwa's about to release her EP, and the girls are all doing their various projects. The reunion actually hit off to millions of viewers, and Jojo's Karma took the Pride scene by storm, creating a viral dance and even the iconic and the much-deserved rise of Color Wow alumni Britt Smith. But what about Abby? What does she think about the show current day? Well, she is constantly spilling new secrets and even sometimes rewriting history on her podcast, Leave It on the Dance Floor. I actually think she named it that because she couldn't use the name Living on the Dance Floor, or she just thought the song was saying Leave It on the Dance Floor. I don't really know. But Abby has a YouTube channel where she still ruthlessly critiques her past students, all except for Jojo. Abby also attempted to star in a new reality show called Hot House that she marketed as Dance Moms Season 9. And I think Collins Avenue doesn't want to get litigious with her, so they just kind of let her do whatever she wants, because it still went forward as like her announcing it as Season 9 of Dance Moms. But this show would actually completely flop and be ended before it could renew for a second season. Abby would also star in House of Villains and become a TikTok sensation. But the Dance Moms producers would opt to not invite her to the reunion, completely excluding the dance teacher who made the show what it was, and actually opting to create an entirely new online series with Abby Lee's mortal enemy, Christy Lukasiak. This time it's titled Dance Moms Epic Showdowns, and it will revisit all the explosive moments from the original show. Now, that's pretty much it for Dance Moms. Now, as I was editing this video, I actually discovered that Dance Moms is back in a very different way, with a new series being announced called Dance Moms A New Era, this time without Abby Lee or any of the icons that made up the ALDC. It sort of reminds me of season 8 whenever they recast the entire show, except without Abby. And with the trailer making no waves on social media, it seems clear that this show will most likely never be able to live up to its counterpart, as the original Dance Moms was special. It was a unique reality show in the sense that the cast members knew each other since childhood. The pre-existing storylines felt like the viewer was eavesdropping on small town gossip, or watching a local fight on their community Facebook page. And some of those storylines, they're still running in the media today. After the virality of Dance Moms, the show had a difficult time recapturing that authenticity. But Dance Moms will still remain as the most controversial and infamous reality show ever made.
Thanks again to Trainwell, formerly Copilot, for sponsoring this episode of Deep Dive. Don't forget to click our link, go.trainwell.net/deep dive, to get 14 days free with your own personal trainer.